Beloved soul, you have walked through the valley where silence echoes louder than words. You have felt the cold distance of someone you thought you would never lose. You have prayed with tears, asking God why hearts can drift so far apart. And you have wondered if the breaking was the final chapter, if the door was closed forever, if the story was over. But I am here to tell you, with the gentle certainty that comes from heaven's whispers, it was not the end, for God, the author of all true love, writes no story without the power to restore, to redeem, and to make even the ashes of yesterday glow with the beauty of a sunrise you did not see coming. They thought it was over, but God was still moving in the unseen. He was softening hearts in the quiet. He was weaving threads of grace between you. In the distance, He was building a bridge that neither of you knew how to cross. You may have felt alone, but you were never abandoned. When God breathes over something, when His hand rests upon a bond He created, time and circumstance cannot undo what His Spirit holds together. I know. You felt the heaviness when they walked away, when words were spoken that cut deep, when misunderstandings painted walls where there used to be open doors. I know. You replayed moments, wondering if you should have said something differently, wondering if they ever think of you, wondering if the love you shared still lives in their heart. But beloved, hear me. When God restores, He does not simply bring back what you lost. He makes it new. He makes it stronger. He makes it purer. This is not about forcing your way back into someone's life. This is about standing in trust, rooted in the truth that if God ordained this connection, no separation can undo it. There is a love that is not of this world. It is not swayed by time, not destroyed by mistakes, not erased by distance. It is the kind of love that is written into your very spirit by the hand of God. And when it is His will, nothing, not even the belief that it is over, can keep it from blooming again, even now. As you listen to these words, something in your spirit feels a quiet stirring. It is the knowing that God has been at work behind the scenes, that the tears you cried were not wasted, that the prayers you whispered in the dark were heard by the One who never slumbers. And I must tell you, restoration is not always loud. Sometimes it comes softly, a gentle conversation, a message out of the blue, a moment where eyes meet and the heart remembers. But make no mistake, when God moves, both hearts will know. Beloved, this is not wishful thinking. This is the movement of heaven in your story. And yes, they thought it was over. You may have even thought it was over. But the author of your love story has turned the page. It is not finished. If these words are bringing peace to your heart, I want to pause here and invite you to walk with me more deeply. Subscribe for more messages like this, not because numbers matter, but because your heart matters, and I want these moments of stillness and truth to continue reaching you. Leave a comment with your reflection or your prayer request. It is not just a message to me. It becomes a prayer we can all carry together as a community. And if God is using this message to bless you, you can share it with someone who is aching in silence, someone who needs a gentle reminder that it is never too late for God to restore. If you feel led, you can also give us super thanks, a simple way to help this ministry of peace and hope reach more weary souls who need the light. I am grateful for every heart that stands with us. Now, let us go deeper. You see, there is a difference between human reconciliation and divine restoration. Reconciliation is when two people decide to come back together. Restoration is when God brings hearts back together in a way that only He could arrange. When God restores, there is healing where there was once wounding. There is understanding where there was once confusion. There is tenderness where there was once pride. And that is why you must not force it. The same God who created the heavens and the earth can move a single heart in a way no human persuasion could. Your role is to remain in the posture of trust, to keep your spirit open, to guard your heart against bitterness, and to keep loving God more than you love the outcome. For when your heart is aligned with His, you are ready for the blessing to return, not in the same broken form it once was, but in the fullness of His design. Perhaps this season of separation was not punishment, but preparation. Perhaps God allowed distance so that pride could melt away. Perhaps He allowed silence so that His voice could be heard again. Perhaps He allowed the pause so that when you come together again, it will not be out of habit, but out of holy purpose. And maybe, just maybe, you are closer to that moment than you realize. Beloved, before we close this part of the journey, I want you to hear this as if God Himself were whispering it to your soul. I am not finished with this love. I am the God who redeems. I am the one who holds hearts in my hand. I can bring them back, not as they were, but as I always intended them to be. So breathe and rest in this truth. They thought it was over. You thought it was over, but God says otherwise. If this message has touched you, remember to subscribe so you can receive more peaceful guidance rooted in God's love. Share your thoughts or your prayer needs in the comments. I will read them, and we will lift them together in prayer. Share this with someone whose heart is heavy today. And if you feel led to give a super thanks, know that your support keeps these words flowing to souls around the world who desperately need hope. Until we speak again, walk in the quiet confidence that what God is restoring cannot be taken from you, beloved soul. When a love is touched by God's hand, time cannot erase it, and distance cannot weaken it. I know the nights you lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling the echo of their absence like a shadow on your chest. You told yourself, it's over. They've moved on, I must move on too. And yet, somewhere in the depth of your spirit, a gentle flame refused to go out. It was not clinging. It was not desperation. It was a quiet knowing, planted there by the one who sees the end from the beginning. God never planted a seed without intending to bring it to life. And this love, the one that has walked through storms, the one that was tested, the one that seemed to be buried, it is being resurrected. You may not see it yet. You may not even feel it yet. But God is working in ways beyond your understanding. Beloved, when He restores a love, He does it in such a way that no one can take the credit but Him. Sometimes He restores quietly, with one small conversation that changes everything. Other times He restores suddenly, like a wave washing back what you thought the tide had taken for good. And perhaps, right now He is preparing both hearts for that moment of return. I want you to understand this. Restoration is not simply a return to how things were. It is the birth of something entirely new, built upon what was, but filled with a greater measure of grace, patience, and understanding. If you rush it, you may step ahead of God's timing. If you force it, you may miss the beauty of His perfect arrangement. But if you trust and remain open to His leading, you will see His fingerprints on every step that brings you back together. I want to pause for a moment and speak to your heart. If this message has been a place of peace for you, I invite you to stay connected with me by subscribing, not for numbers, but so that your soul can continue to be fed with these words of hope and truth. Share your reflections in the comments. Your words may be the encouragement someone else is praying for today. If you know someone carrying the silent weight of a broken relationship, send them this message and let it be a reminder that God is not finished. And if your heart feels led, you can give a super thanks. This helps keep the message of God's love reaching more hearts across the world, especially those who are too weary to seek it on their own. Your support makes a difference more than you may ever know. Now, beloved, let's look at what often happens before God restores. Sometimes He will take both people on separate journeys, paths that seem to go in opposite directions, only to bring them back together at the right time. This is because He is shaping each of you, teaching lessons that will protect the love when it returns. Maybe you had to learn to communicate with greater tenderness. Maybe they had to learn how to truly appreciate the gift you are. Maybe both of you had to release wounds from the past so that they would not poison the future. Separation, when surrendered to God, becomes preparation. And I believe that is what has been happening. You may feel you've lost precious time, but heaven wastes nothing. Every tear, every prayer, every moment of missing them has been placed into God's hands, and He has been using it to weave something beautiful. And when His timing comes, it will feel like the pieces fall into place without striving. There will be a peace in your spirit, a knowing that this is not just two people choosing to try again, but two souls stepping into the design God had for them all along. You will not have to beg for their love. You will not have to convince them. You will not have to fear losing them again. For when God restores, He restores in a way that lasts. Beloved, do not lose hope now. You have walked through too much to give up before the breakthrough. Even now, there is movement in the unseen. God is speaking into their heart, just as He has been speaking into yours. And one day, perhaps sooner than you think, you will look into their eyes and realize that the love you thought had died was never truly gone. It was in God's keeping all along. Before we close this part, I want to speak blessings over your heart. May God give you the patience to wait without fear. May He give you the faith to trust His hand, even when you cannot see His plan. May He prepare your heart so that when restoration comes, you will embrace it with joy and walk in it with grace. They thought it was over. You thought it was over. But God says, my story for you is still being written. If this word has touched your spirit, remember to subscribe so you can walk this journey with me. Leave your thoughts or prayer needs in the comments. Your testimony may become someone's hope. Share this with a soul who needs to be reminded of God's restoring power. And if you feel called to give a super thanks, know that your gift keeps this ministry alive and reaching far beyond what we can see. Until next time, rest in the truth that God's love never ends where human love thinks it must. Beloved soul, by now you have walked with me through the valleys and the quiet places of the heart, and perhaps your spirit feels lighter than when we began. You have remembered that God is the keeper of every love He plants, and that no ending is final when His will is to restore. But now I want to take you to the heart of the mystery, how God turns over into again, and how He transforms goodbye into welcome home. You see, when God restores a love, He does not simply rewind the story. He writes a new chapter, one filled with understanding born of the storms you survived, patience learned in the waiting, and gratitude that comes only when you have once tasted loss. This is why sometimes the most beautiful love stories are not the ones that never broke, but the ones that broke and were rebuilt by the hands of the Father. They thought it was over, but God was preparing something greater. Beloved, you may wonder, why would God allow the pain at all? Why let hearts part if He intended to bring them back together? The answer is not always simple, but often it is this: because there were things you could not learn together, that you had to learn apart. Sometimes love must step back so faith can step forward. Sometimes the heart must ache so the soul can awaken. Sometimes the walls must fall so the foundation can be rebuilt on truth. And sometimes God simply wants both of you to see that your love is not merely the result of human choice, but a divine gift worth protecting. There is a moment after the season of separation when God begins to draw the hearts near again. It may start subtly. A thought of them you can't shake, a memory that makes you smile instead of ache, a message you feel led to send, or one you unexpectedly receive. And in that moment, you feel it. The gentle wind of God's Spirit, breathing life where there was once stillness. Beloved, when this happens, do not rush. Do not cling. Do not let fear drive you. Let the restoration unfold under the light of His grace. God's timing is as perfect as His love. I want to pause here and speak directly to you from my heart. If this journey through God's truth has been a comfort to you, I invite you to subscribe so we can keep walking together, because I do not want your soul to be without these moments of peace and clarity. Leave a comment with your prayer requests, or what this word has spoken to you, not just for me, but so others can pray with you and for you. Share this with someone who needs to know that God is able to restore what seems lost. And if your heart feels led, you can give us super thanks as a way of helping this ministry keep bringing God's light to weary hearts around the world. I am grateful for every hand that lifts with us. Now, back to your story. When God restores a love, He restores it with honor. There is no room for the old wounds to rule a new season. There is no space for pride to suffocate tenderness. There is no desire to keep score of past mistakes. Instead, there is forgiveness that is real, patience that is deep, and joy that feels like a gift unwrapped for the first time. You will look at each other and see not just who you were, but who you have become. And in that becoming, you will recognize the hand of God. This is what makes restored love sacred, that it is no longer about, I need you to be happy, but God gave me you as a blessing to cherish. It is no longer about, I don't want to lose you, but I want to walk with you through everything, knowing God holds us together. It is no longer about trying to be perfect for each other, but about standing side by side in God's perfect love. Beloved, this is your reminder. The same God who created the heavens and the earth can breathe life back into your love story. It does not matter how final it felt. It does not matter how far apart you were. It does not matter how impossible it looks right now. When He says it is time, doors will open. Hearts will soften. Love will return, and you will know that it was never truly over. It was simply in God's care. Before we close this journey, I want to pray over you. May the Lord fill your heart with unwavering faith. May He give you the strength to wait without anxiety, and the wisdom to see His hand even in the small things. May He prepare your spirit for the restoration He is bringing, and may your heart be ready to love again without fear. They thought it was over. You thought it was over, but God says, I am not finished. I am the restorer of all things. If this message has reached the deepest part of you, subscribe so we can keep sharing these sacred moments together. Write your reflections or prayers in the comments so we can lift them to heaven together. Share this with someone whose heart has been quietly hoping for a miracle. And if you feel called, you can give us super thanks to help this light travel further than we can imagine. Until we meet again, walk in peace, and hold in your spirit the truth that love in God's hands is never truly lost. Beloved soul, you may think by now you have heard all there is to say, but the story of God's restoration is never just one moment. It is a journey, a process, a steady unfolding of grace that reaches deeper than the pain ever went. I want you to hear this. God does not restore simply to take away your sadness. He restores because His nature is wholeness. He restores because His glory is revealed in things the world thought were beyond repair. He restores because He delights in turning endings into beginnings. They thought it was over, but heaven never marked it as finished. Sometimes God will allow the silence to stretch until both hearts realize what truly matters. We live in a world quick to replace, quick to move on, quick to forget. But when God is involved, He teaches us that some loves are not disposable. Some loves carry eternal fingerprints. These are the connections He intends to heal, not because we cannot live without them, but because His purpose is alive within them. Beloved, if this is your story, you must remember, restoration is as much about your soul's healing as it is about their return. When God brings them back, you will not be the same person who once held them. You will be stronger. You will be softer. You will be more rooted in Him than you ever were before, and they too will have been changed. Perhaps right now, they are on their own journey with God. Perhaps He is speaking to their heart in ways you cannot see. Perhaps the very struggles they face today are the tools God is using to prepare them to love you well tomorrow. When God restores, He does not just bring back, He rebuilds. And when the rebuilding is complete, the bond becomes a testimony. It becomes proof that God's love is stronger than human failure. If your spirit is finding peace in these words, pause with me for a moment. Subscribe to stay close to this well of encouragement, not for the sake of numbers, but so you always have a place to return when your heart grows weary. Share your reflections or prayer requests in the comments. Your words may be the lifeline another soul needs today. If you know someone quietly grieving a love they thought was gone forever, send this message to them as a gift of hope. And if you feel called, you can give us super thanks, not as a transaction, but as a way to keep this ministry of peace alive, reaching those who may be moments away from giving up. Beloved, one of the most beautiful things about God's restoration is the way it humbles us. You may find yourself apologizing without fear. You may find them speaking words they once could not. You may find both of you more willing to listen than to argue, more eager to understand than to be understood. And that humility is holy ground, for pride is often the wall that keeps love from healing. And when God tears down that wall, there is room for His Spirit to flow freely again. Do not despise the breaking that led you here, for it is in the breaking that God plants the seeds of the new thing He is about to grow. And when that moment comes, when you see them again, when words are few but the heart is full, when you realize the weight of the past no longer hangs over your love, you will know God has done this, and you will carry that gratitude into every day that follows. Beloved, if you are still waiting, do not confuse silence with absence. God works most powerfully in places you cannot see. And while you are here, wondering and hoping, He is there, weaving and preparing. There will be a day when the threads come together, when what felt frayed becomes whole, and you will see why He took the time He did. Trust Him, even now. Especially now. Before we close this part of the journey, let me speak a blessing over you. May your heart be anchored in peace as you wait. May your eyes see beyond the present into the promise of God's faithfulness. May you welcome His restoration with joy when it comes, and cherish it as the treasure it is. They thought it was over. You thought it was over, but God says, "My plan is still unfolding." If this word has touched you deeply, subscribe so we can continue walking together in the stillness of God's truth. Leave your thoughts or prayers in the comments. I read them, and together we lift them to heaven. Share this with someone who needs the reminder that God's story is not yet finished. And if your heart feels led, you can give us super thanks to help this light reach those who need it most. Until next time. Rest in the quiet assurance that what God restores, He restores to last, beloved soul. There is something you must know. God's restoration is not a moment of luck. It is the unfolding of a promise He made long before you saw the first sign of it happening. You may have thought you were praying to convince God to change His mind, but in truth, you were aligning your heart with a work He had already begun. They thought it was over. And maybe you believed it too, but the truth is, God had already written the return into the story. Sometimes God allows a love to be tested so deeply that it feels like it has been buried in the ground. But what is buried is not always dead. Some things are planted. And what is planted must spend a season unseen, so it can grow roots deep enough to last. Beloved, that season of separation was not the end. It was the hidden season of root work. God making sure that when this love grows again, it will be unshakable. It will be able to withstand storms you cannot yet see. Think back to the prayers you have prayed. Every word, every tear, every longing has been held in God's hands. And while you were wondering if anything was changing, He was aligning hearts, healing wounds, and removing the unseen obstacles that once stood between you. Sometimes God works in ways so quiet, you only recognize His fingerprints when the miracle is in front of you. If this message is stirring hope within you, pause with me here. Subscribe so that your soul has a safe place to return. A place where God's truth and comfort will always meet you. Share your reflections or prayer requests in the comments. You may find that your words are the very encouragement another soul has been crying out for. If you know someone carrying silent grief over a love they think is gone forever, send them this as a gift of hope. And if you feel led, you can give a super thanks, an offering that helps keep these words flowing into the lives of those who may have no one else speaking peace into them. Beloved, when the day of restoration comes, it will be different from the day of reunion you may have pictured in your mind. That it may not be grand or dramatic. It may not have the perfect words or a flawless moment. Instead, it will have something far greater, peace, a peace that settles into your heart and tells you that you are standing in the will of God, that it is that peace that will assure you this time it is not fleeting. This time it is not fragile. This time it is rooted in something eternal. You will look at each other and you will both know without needing to say it, God has done this. In the waiting, I want you to guard your heart. Do not let bitterness take root. Do not let fear write a false ending to your story. Do not rehearse the hurt so often that you forget the joy God can still give you. Instead, fill your waiting with prayer. Fill your days with gratitude for what God has already done in you. Fill your spirit with trust, because trust is the soil where restoration grows best. Beloved, the same God who parted the sea for His people, the same God who brought life to the valley of dry bones, is the God who can bring life to a love you thought was gone. It does not matter how much time has passed. It does not matter how impossible it looks. It does not matter if everyone else believes it is over. When God says live, even the most broken love will breathe again. Before we close this part, receive this blessing. May your hope be renewed each morning. May your faith grow stronger than your doubts. May your heart stay open to the miracle God is preparing. And may you recognize His hand when the restoration arrives, so that you give Him all the glory. They thought it was over. You thought it was over, but God says, I have been working for your good all along. If this word has poured peace into your heart, subscribe so you will not miss the next time God speaks through this space. Share your prayers in the comments so we can lift them together. Send this message to someone who is quietly hoping for God to breathe life into their love story again. And if you feel called to, give us super thanks to help this ministry continue to reach the hearts who need it most. Until we meet again, rest in the promise that nothing is truly over when God holds the pen. Beloved soul, as we come deeper into this sacred journey of restoration, let your heart rest in this truth. God's timing is perfect, never early, never late, always exactly when your spirit needs it most. You may have walked through silence and waiting, wondering if the story would ever be written again. But the author of your love has never stopped writing. They thought it was over, but God's love never gave up. Remember this, the love God restores is not fragile. It is not a fleeting moment of hope that fades at the first sign of difficulty. It is a love made strong in the fire of trial, forged by faith and sealed by grace. When God brings hearts back together, He does so with a peace that surpasses all understanding. You will not fear the past, because He has redeemed it. You will not worry about the future, because He holds it. You will simply walk forward, side by side, heart to heart, anchored in His unshakable love. Let me pause here to gently invite you to stay connected with these messages of hope and peace. Subscribe to this channel, not for numbers, but so that your spirit will always have a place of refuge and encouragement. Share your thoughts or prayer needs in the comments. Your words may be the light another soul is searching for today. Send this message to someone who needs to hear that God is still working on their love story. And if your heart feels led, consider giving us super thanks. Your support helps this sacred ministry continue, carrying words of comfort and restoration to hearts around the world. Beloved, God does not restore a love by forgetting the past. He restores by redeeming it, by healing the wounds, by teaching mercy, by growing understanding. That is why restored love is often more tender, more patient, more willing to forgive. It carries the scars, but it no longer lets the scars define it. This is the love that knows God's hand is on it and trusts Him completely. And when you meet again, there will be a stillness in your soul that tells you this is the moment God has prepared. The past will no longer haunt you, but serve as the foundation for a new beginning. You will not be bound by old hurts, but freed by the grace God poured into your hearts. And your love will be a testimony to the world that even when all seemed lost, God's restoration is powerful enough to bring life from the ashes. Beloved soul, if you are waiting, wait with hope. If you are hurting, heal with patience. If you are wondering, trust with faith, because God is still writing your story and He is not finished. They thought it was over. You thought it was over. But God says, watch what I will do. Before we close, receive this blessing. May your heart be filled with peace beyond understanding. May your faith rise like the morning sun and your hope never fade. May you recognize the gentle hand of God moving behind every door that opens again. If this word has spoken to your soul, subscribe so you never miss these sacred moments of peace. Share your prayers and reflections in the comments. We will lift them together in faith. Send this message to someone waiting for a miracle in their love story. And if you feel led, give us super thanks to help bring this message to more hearts around the world. Until next time, walk in the quiet confidence that what God restores will last forever. Beloved soul, you have journeyed far, and your heart carries the weight of waiting. But know this, the story of restoration is never rushed by God. He is weaving a tapestry with every thread of your prayers, every tear you have shed in silence, and every longing that has settled deep in your spirit. They thought it was over. But God's plan for your love is still unfolding, more intricate and beautiful than you can yet imagine. Let us speak of the waiting, that quiet, sometimes heavy space where time seems to stand still. It is not wasted, beloved. It is sacred. It is the soil where faith grows roots deep enough to hold the weight of miracles. In your waiting, God is working. He's preparing both your heart and theirs, softening the places hardened by disappointment, filling the empty spaces with His peace, teaching lessons that only time and grace can bring. You may not see it now, but every moment apart is part of the divine choreography that will bring you back to one another, whole and new. I know the ache of wondering if the one you love thinks of you, the late-night questions that circle in your mind, the moments you catch yourself reaching for a memory that feels distant. These are not signs of weakness, but of a love that God has placed deeply inside you, a love that refuses to be erased. Remember this, beloved, God's love is not limited by human circumstances. He can soften the hardest hearts, bridge the widest gaps, and bring light into the darkest places. Now is the time to nurture your soul with hope, to shield your heart from bitterness, and to trust God's perfect timing. Rest in the assurance that He is working behind the scenes, even when you cannot see the results. I want to invite you again to stay connected with this ministry of peace and hope. Subscribe so you can receive these sacred words whenever your spirit needs encouragement. Write your thoughts or prayer needs in the comments. Sometimes the simple act of sharing can open the door to healing. Share this message with someone who is quietly longing for restoration. And if you feel moved, give a super thanks too. Help this message reach souls longing for hope around the world. Your support is a blessing that keeps this ministry alive and growing. Beloved, let us reflect on what it means to be ready for restoration. Readiness is not simply about wishing for a reunion. It is about becoming the person God is shaping you to be during this season of waiting. It is about surrendering your desire for control and embracing God's perfect will, even when it feels uncertain. It is about healing wounds, letting go of unforgiveness, and walking in humility, because God's restoration will always be sweeter when it arrives in hearts prepared by grace. Do not fear the changes you have undergone. They are the necessary steps God uses to align your soul with His divine purpose. Trust that He is transforming both you and them, even if the path is hidden from your view. And when the time comes for restoration, you will recognize it not by the absence of struggle, but by the presence of peace, by the depth of your forgiveness, and by the joy that radiates from a love that has been refined by fire. Beloved soul, it is possible that restoration may not look exactly as you imagine. It may be quieter than you hoped, or different from what your heart planned, but it will be exactly what God intends, a love rooted in truth, carried by grace, and sustained by His unending faithfulness. Before we close this longer part of the journey, I want to speak a blessing over your waiting heart. May God give you strength to persevere, peace that surpasses understanding, and faith that holds firm even in the silence. May you be wrapped in His love every moment, and may your hope rise each day like the dawn. They thought it was over. You thought it was over. But God says, this love is still alive, and I am bringing it back to fullness. If this message has brought peace and hope to your soul, subscribe so we can continue this sacred journey together. Share your prayers and reflections in the comments. Your words matter deeply. Send this message to someone who needs to know God's restoration is real. And if you feel led, give us super thanks, a humble offering that helps this ministry reach more hearts waiting for hope. Until next time, walk in quiet trust and carry the truth that God's love is never truly over.